Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I want to talk about something that's quite, how would I say, uh, sensitive in many respects, and that is I'm going to talk about a question I was asked actually recently on a radio show was, should people who are grieving understand about the dangers of the afterlife? My answer was yes. I actually want to explain why. There's many different reasons why I said yes. Um, when someone is grieving, when someone is in the throes of grief and they've just lost a loved one, there's a certain amount of divine protection there. There's a certain amount from that loss that I believe our divinity or guides, etc., look after us. But there's also there comes a time where there's a certain amount of desperation from someone who's grieving to to desperately try and seek attention of the other side or try and find out if their loved ones are alive. That's where it kind of becomes a little bit dicey. And I'm not going to pick on anyone and I'm not going to pick on any individual particular thing, but there's been cases where people have been drawn in EVP and it's hurt them. People have been drawn into using Ouija boards because they've lost loved ones and it's hurt them, and it's caused them much more grief and much more upset in their life. So, whilst reaching out and getting information from your loved ones is a beautiful thing, um, even though when we're grieving, we still have to realize that there's an inherent danger there, because some people are so desperate in their grief that they will do almost anything to reach out to their loved ones, and I feel so sorry for them. But there's many ways to look at it. Someone who's in the grief process at the beginning, there's going to be a certain amount of protection. There's going to be a lot of prayers. There's going to be a lot of love, and their loved ones will try and reach out to them in some way. And there's also going to be where the other side is trying to reach out to let them know that they're okay. But when it becomes dangerous is when the person is not healing from their grief, or they're not going through that grief journey in the way that they should do. And let me explain. When someone's grieving and they perhaps go and see a medium or they go to a counsellor or they start to feel better in themselves, they get used to the loss. Well, they don't get used to the loss, but there's an acceptance, there's a level of acceptance and accepting the loss, and so they're able to move through and go on their grief journey. And then there comes a point in time where maybe things in the afterlife will interest them, but because they're actually going through the grief journey, there's a lot more understanding. The vibration is completely different, and therefore, when they actually start to look into things a little bit more, there's a certain element of protection. There's a certain element of being able to discern. Somebody who is, and I'm going to go back to a case that I was involved in many, many years ago, where the family, the the woman and her family started utilising a Ouija board to contact a loved one on the other side, the father, and she wouldn't let the rest of them got to such a point where they could accept the grief and they could accept the change in the circumstance, they could accept the change in the family unit, but one of them couldn't. Okay, and so what happened is they got more and more and more involved in trying to communicate in any way, shape, or form they could, and so they turned to tools that they do not have. Um, they don't have control in, they don't have experience in, and they're not natural mediums, so they're not able to discern as well as another person would be. And so the signal that they put out into the universe, or they put out to the spirit world, is I want to communicate. I'm desperate to communicate with my loved ones. I'm desperate to communicate with my father, my son, my brother, whatever, whoever's passed. And then what happens is nefarious spirits on the other side, or if you like, we even goes deep as saying perhaps even worse, play upon that need, that desire, and can give you what you want. It's like I said before in other videos. It's almost like giving a kid a sweet or giving a dog a treat. You know, they want that. You know, they need that. They need that that connection, that sweetness, that taste, or they need to feel that sustenance within inside them. And so when someone who is going through the grieving process re- literally refuses to move forward, refuses to try and look at their grief in a different way, in trying to understand it and trying to move forward and trying to, to help them go through and get to a place in their life where they can accept it, they will do almost anything and they're almost blinded by it. Now, I do not want to upset anyone, so please understand I'm not upsetting anybody. I'm just trying to say that, when we're grieving, there is an element of danger as well, and you just need to be prepared. You need to understand that. For those of you who just won't, for those of you that have grieved and have had wonderful experiences, telephone calls from the dead and all sorts of things that happen. There's been books about it. Um, Scientists have researched it. There's people have heard their loved ones through electronic means and through computers and signs and different things. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes that's beautiful and that's wonderful. But you also got to remember that on the other side, you can be given what you want. And there's a lot of your information is in your energy. We're talking about morphogenetic field. There's a lot of information that's resonant within that energy. And so the desire that you give out there, the actual, the desperation to communicate with the other side, it is easy for something that's nefarious on the other side to decide to give you the answers that you want over a period of time. Perhaps it's like going fishing. They're trying to grab you in. So one has to kind of try and understand where they are on their grief journey. Grief is such a terrible thing. I mean, I've lost lots of loved ones, and recently, a member of my family has just crossed. Um, and there's going to be a time where through your grief journey, you have to come to a point of acceptance that the person is not in the physical realm anymore, the loved one is not in the physical realm anymore, but the bond continues. And with that bond, increasing the vibration, wonderful communications can happen. But there are some people who go through grief that end up in terrible depression, that end up in incredible loneliness, that are ripe. They will try anything, whether it be trying using Ouija boards, using tarot cards, using tools, and even going to bad mediums, bad psychics that give them the wrong information, that give them false hope, that tell them information that they should go and do this and do that and light a candle and do this. There is an element of danger there. There's an element that it's almost that they're not in control of that aspect. And so what can actually happen is they put out that signal and therefore you will get um, a negative or a nefarious entity that may want to make communication, read everything about that individual, read everything about their energy, read everything about what is there, and feed them, make them feel good over a period of time, and then slowly things start to change. Slowly things maybe in the home change, moods change, things like this happen. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't get ourselves too deep in our grief that we can't actually get out and that we get caught by something else. Now, I don't want to frighten anybody because going to a medium is a wonderful thing, and learning about life is a wonderful thing, and all the beautiful things that are available to develop within the power of your own soul and your own spirit. But like anything in life, and this is why I wanted to talk about it more, like anything in life, there is dangers. Okay, you go into a bad area, a dangerous area, you are taking a risk, and in that risk, you could be attacked, you could be mugged. Some places in America, you could be shot at. You could get shot. So if there is dangerous areas in our physical realm, there's also dangerous areas in the afterlife, in the spirit realm. And sometimes also you've got to remember that when we're grieving, when we've gone so far and we cannot let go of the grief, we can't do it. Your vibration is not as high as what you think it is, because your vibration is vibrating at a lower level, and then in that lower level, that is when we're attracting the vibrational attraction, vibrational match of those on the other side, and perhaps nefarious spirits on the other side. And it might even just be a grounded spirit, it might just be a nuisance who wants to play with you and hurt you emotionally. So it's very important that when we're grieving, that we try to maintain a divine attitude of things. We try and pray through our grief in the evening, or we pray in the morning, or we pray for our loved ones. We slowly start to try and see a change, and this is where sometimes when I was asked, it kind of floored me when I was asked about my book that I wrote, Deadly Departed, the Do's, Don'ts, and Dangers of Afterlife Communication. I wrote it for mediums, I wrote it for professionals, but there's been more and more families and more people have been reading it who are grieving, that want to learn about this as well. They want to learn that there's a dangerous aspect to it, so that when they decide to move forward and try and get communication from their loved ones, they're doing it in the right way. And it's no different to how we're developing as mediums. We want to be protected when we're communicating with the other side, when we're in circle. And so it's right, it's right that people who have lost loved ones and who are grieving also want to be protected. So in that way, I never kind of thought about my book as being um, of benefit to those that are grieving, but it does, and I've noticed it recently because I've had so many emails and messages and been asked so many questions. Um, but again, we have to create a balance. There's a yin and yang. We don't want to frighten anybody too much that they can't, that they don't want to do anything or get any connections from a loved ones, and we don't want to give them a false sense of security and rose tinted glasses, because I have seen cases, and I have seen, and so as colleagues of mine have seen cases where people are maybe delving into EVP, and you can see the patterns are starting to get negative. And I've had people that's connected to, is connected with me that have everything has been fine, everything for a long time, and then all of a sudden it starts to change, and we don't have proof whether the spirit on the other side started to change, or whether something's been hindering it. And there's aspects of this in scripture and Bible and stuff like that. You only have to go to reading in the book of Daniel. There's actually some examples of nefarious forces actually standing in between prayer and angelic forces, etc. Now, they can't really. There's no real great power that anything negative has over anything of a divine force, but it shows you by example that in many cases in history and throughout all religions, there is this negative force that tries to hold back the good. And so, when people are in the darkest nights of the soul, and you've got to think, St. John of the Cross who talked about the darkest nights of the soul, people at that level, vibration's not matched as high as what it could be. And that's through maybe not through all fault of their own, and so they could become a target. Something's out there fishing, then there might be some bites, and that's what concerns. That's what concerns me. So I do think, very much so, I do think that people who are grieving should read my book or any other book about perhaps issues out there. We have people like Alex Kardec in the past, who will talk about uh, impersonating spirits, which we have available, which happens, and we have many other uh, scholars and many other people who have gone through that gauntlet to talk about impersonating spirits. So yes, it can happen, and so understanding the dangers that's there doesn't necessarily frighten you not to do it. What it should do is empower you to give you the knowledge, the wisdom, and the capacity to be able to discern that by realizing, okay, I might be grieving. I do want to hear from my loved ones in the afterlife. I do want to make a connection with them, but I want to do it in the right way. I want to recognize what's bad and what's not. what's particularly dangerous. And that's why I think it's a good thing. And there'll be a lot of people, unfortunately, that will not agree with what I say. But I would rather keep the horse bolted in rather than letting the stable door open and then worrying about it afterwards. So it's very important that you understand it, and you understand that I'm coming from a place of trying to kind of uplift you and realize that, yes, you can speak with your loved ones, yes, you can communicate with your loved ones, but you have to also take responsibility in your grief, and it's important that you take responsibility in your grief. It's important that you always move through your grief, okay? Nobody can heal you from it. You have to heal from it yourself. But it's a journey that we go upon, and in that journey, there's going to be stumbling blocks, and that's, we have a level of protection from our own divinity, our own power. But it's very, to have knowledge. Knowledge gives strength to the arm. It's a great saying. It's something that I really believe. Knowledge does give strength to the arm. And so when you're grieving, to have that knowledge will help you make your communication safer, better, and stronger. It will also help you to go through the grief process a bit more empowered, if you like. But the issue is when do you stop? When you're just refusing to move forward through your grief journey and trying to heal through that, you become very dependent on the spiritualist factor, or the spiritual, not the spiritualist, that's wrong for me to say, but you become very dependent on the spirit connection. And that could be any spirit connection, because in your desperation to communicate, you don't necessarily know who you are communicating with, and you have no proof. And even with all the EVPs and the Ouija boards and things that come on, there's very little evidence that will give you unequivocal proof. Because information can be given to you that you already hold within your own being. So I say to you that don't be frightened to study the afterlife. Don't be frightened to go to mediums. Good mediums, that is. I mean, obviously there's questionable ones out there, and there's questionable psychics that can lead you down the wrong path. But also utilize your intuition. How does it feel in yourself, when you're doing this communication? That's a big thing as well. Because some people in their desperation will communicate, but they didn't feel good about it. And it's kind of negative, but they'll keep communicating because there's that excitement of them communicating with the other side. But how does it feel within you? Is it raising love, feelings of love, compassion? Those your own intuition is a great guidance in your own discernment, and that's something I want you to really really think about, because you'll be able to analyze that over a period of time as things happen. And I've had people that have come to me that have gone to mediums or have experience with psychics, and they never felt good about it, and yet the information they had, they thought was okay. It wasn't blind mind blowing, but it didn't make them feel good, and that can kind of be a little bit of a warning signal, especially if the person is under so much grief. So when you've lost a daughter or you've lost a son, your desperation to communicate is so strong that you'll almost forget about those dangers, and you will start to make any means necessary to try and communicate. But what I want you to think about, try and think about communication like standing under a waterfall. You can't capture the water in your hand and keep it forever like most people would want to do. It's such a beautiful and such a powerful thing, but it will always find its way around you, and it will always dissipate. The only way to actually capture the essence of it is to become part of it, to stand under it, to feel it. Let the flow come towards you rather than you trying to fight against the stream, because that's not what happens. In that respect, you're not chasing something, you're allowing it to come. So you'll allow spirit to come to you in your own time. You keep your vibration high. I feel really sorry for people who are grieving and they don't believe that they've had any connections yet. And the chances are that they have. It's just that in their grief, they're at such a low vibration in the grief at the moment that they're not able to recognize those little subtle signs. But what I would say is just don't delve into any particular tool or any particular form just to be able to make communication because you don't know what you're going to communicate with. Seek counsel, seek help from others who have gone through the process. Seek for help from a professional teacher or a medium who's able to help you go through and give you evidence of the afterlife, unequivocal evidence of the afterlife, so that then you can then maybe under their direction or under their wisdom can guide you to the right place to learn that. But there are people who grieve and they get help and they get so many wonderful experiences. And what I think is that their vibration has got to such a level they're able to accept an element of that grief and they're able to start to move through in that direction. But there's other people, and I know people, personally know people, who will not let go of their grief and they hold on to it. And they also hold on to it. And I did a video a little while ago called The Selfishness of Grief, which I would tell you to go and watch it on my YouTube channel. Go and watch it because it's not long being released. It's not negative in any way. And this is not negative anyway. This is just saying, just be aware. Be aware. And, if you get my book or any other books for that matter, recognize there's a danger in life, there's a danger in the afterlife. It's just not everything in the garden is not always rosy. And it's a terrible thing for someone who's grieving to start experiencing bad things because they've dabbled in things that they don't understand and they have no control over. Prayer is a big thing that I would say to pray regularly. Especially when you're going through the grieving process as well, and learn about it. But don't be afraid to look within yourself, and don't be afraid to challenge your grief to be able to move through it, because we all go through it. Okay, there's a choice. There's a saying. There's a choice. If you want to be happy, you just choose to be happy. Everything is a choice in life. You choose to do something or not. Yes, in your grief, you're going to feel it. I felt it with my father. It was terrible. I felt it with my uncles. I felt it with so many different people in my life, friends that I lost in the military and all sorts of people. But I've never allowed myself to go so deep down that I was in a pit of despair that I couldn't get out of, or I was so connected to getting information from the other side that I would try almost anything, and people do, and that's when they get into a bit of trouble. So, read Deadly Departed, learn about it, learn about the dangers of it. Don't let it frighten you, let it give you, empower you, because knowledge gives strength to the arm, and recognize that you can have wonderful experiences and that loved ones will connect with us in so many different ways, and that's fantastic. But we must try and keep our vibrations high, because there are spirits on the other side that don't want us to be happy. The spirits on the other side that would rather see us suffering. And if you are in that pit and you can't raise and you just refuse to get out of it, because some people refuse to get out of it because they get a lot of attention, and that's another aspect. Getting that attention can make them feel good, and so that can also be a catalyst to things. So don't be frightened of what I'm telling you. Just realize that it's just knowledge that you have to, you learn. If you were told don't go into this area, you went into this area. Don't put your hand on a fire or you'll burn yourself. Don't shoot up drugs. You could kill yourself. Don't play. There's so many different things. There is an element to balance yin and yang, good and bad, and everything. As I said in many different interviews and things, we only know good because we understand evil. We only know pain because we understand health. We only know dark because we see light. So it doesn't mean whether you believe it or not, whether it doesn't exist or not. There are so many cases, so many people that have gone before us, mediums, prophets, that will attest to the negativity on the other side. So all I want you to do is to be prepared with the knowledge and to be safe when you move through in this journey, whether it be a grief journey, a development journey, or not. If you've got any questions, please get back to me and let me know. God bless.